questions. Muted. Welcome to OfficeMate Office Managers webinar series on reports. Today we're going to talk about daily reports. My name is Rebecca Johnson, and I'm the Education Director for Eyefinity, which has OfficeMate, Eyefinity HR, Eyefinity Practice Management, and also SamWriter. So I love working with the products. My favorite thing to do is to talk to our clients and reach out to you. So here we are doing this webinar series, and it was actually really cool that our Facebook page, we gave them an opportunity to vote on what they wanted, and overwhelmingly they said, we want to know about reports. So in this series, we started last week talking about navigation. This week, we're talking about what you should have on your daily reports tab. And we have with us today, who's going to be our main presenter, we have Sue Fischel. Sue is a content specialist at Eyefinity. She actually has 7 years experience in the eye care industry, and you'll also see that she is a certified para-optometric. She's had many positions here at Eyefinity, from customer care to training specialist, now content specialist. And on top of that, Sue is our OfficeMate presenter at the Eyefinity Education Conference. Along with Sue, we have Melissa Mueller. Melissa is actually a CPOA. She is the office manager for the Optometric Center. She is on the Idaho Optometric Physicians Para-Optometric Board, and I love the fact that she was selected in both 2007 and 2014 as the Idaho Para-Optometric of the Year. So Sue is just coming to us as one of you. She's coming to us as an office manager who uses OfficeMate every single day in her practice. And so as Sue presents, Melissa will be kind of chiming in and saying this is how we do it in our office. And then also, as they're presenting, if you have a question, I want you to chat the question to me. So make sure that you go down to the chat feature, chat the question. At a good time to interrupt, I will come in, interrupt, and ask your question. So let's get started. Sue, I'm going to go ahead and give you the presenter role so that you can share your screen with us. I think I am. Here it comes. Yes, there we go. All right, you should be able to pick it up now.
All right. Welcome, everybody. As Rebecca said, we're going to talk about daily reports today. So let's begin with where that daily tab is at. Your reports icon is up here in the top title bar or the icon bar within OfficeMate. There's also an icon bar or an icon within the administration side as well. But we're going to focus on the OfficeMate side for this webinar. So let's open that up. Slide that over. And we're going to be talking about this daily tab today. Last week on our navigation webinar, we discussed how to move around in this screen and what all of these different things mean. So let's just, this week, start right on down this list so we can get started in explaining these reports for us. Okay? This first one that we think is important to put on this daily tab is an appointment schedule. The appointment schedule will give you a list of appointments for a specific day. And over here on the right, we have actually entered in some date criteria. Your options for the criteria for running the report is you can select all providers, or you can click your drop down here and select an individual provider to put on that report. Good to have more than one provider in your office, and each provider wants their own set of appointments for the day that they're going to, of patients are going to be seen. You can print a report for each provider. If your one doctor in your office likes to see what types of services he's going to be doing, you can select it per service as well. This little check mark here will provide all time slots to show. So I'm going to leave it checked for this first demonstration. And your location is always going to be the default location of the OfficeMate location that you're in. Let's take a look at this report real quick. I do apologize, I have two screens, so we'll be moving things around here as we go. So this is what the appointment schedule looks like when you have that little check mark to show all time slots. It's going to show you where your availability is, as well as where your appointments are. In case the doctor wants to take that long lunch with his wife or something, he'll be able to see right away in the morning if he can do that.
Sue, can I chime in really quick? This is Melissa.
Yeah.
I think for my office, we really love this appointment scheduler, as she'll probably show you. It shows a couple of different testing options in the notes sections that our doctor likes to look at or have done before the patient walks back to see our doctor. So as you can see, one of them is IOP and OCT. Those would be tests that the doctor has potentially in the previous record mentioned that he wanted to have done. So we know when we look at this at a glance, we can see, oh, these are the two tests that need to be done before the doctor actually sees that patient. So our office really loves this specific report for that purpose. Another great way to glance at it really quickly.
Right, I agree. All right, let's uncheck this all time slot so you can see what it looks like without that option being selected. And as you can see, the list will actually just display the appointments you have on the scheduler for that given date. So you can print your appointment schedules the day ahead of time if you choose to do so. It doesn't have to be on the specific day before you come out and you run your report. To prepare at the end of my day today, I might want to print my schedule for Monday and have that all ready to go. Okay. In the scheduler itself, I want to actually show you where those notes are at. Let's pull that up here real quick. We may be referencing different areas of OfficeMate on how they affect the reports as we go. So when you schedule an appointment, you have the options to put your notes right here. And then when you run that report, like Melissa said, those notes will appear in that area. Okay? Awesome. Let's move on to our daily transaction audit report. And a daily transaction audit report gives you transactions and audit of the transactions for that given day. So we're going to use yesterday's date because we did have some transactions over there. You can key in your dates here, or you can use your set date at the top. By provider, if it's checked, it'll sort those transactions based on the provider in the office as who's seen those visits. We're going to leave that checked for right now. You can do this transaction report for a specific provider as well, or for all providers. Or you can sort and see who recorded those transactions. And these are the staff members that are in the office. Here's our location once again. Let's go ahead and preview this. So here's our daily transaction report. And as you can see, yesterday, we took in and saw patients, the Carpenter family. We saw Rick Castle as well as Marty John, and did something with her account. She may not have had an appointment in the office, but she did do a product return on a frame that she had purchased. Now these little O's on the end of each one of these line items means that is the original transaction or the original functionality that happened during that transaction when it was first recorded. Okay. Another thing that this report will give is it will give Give me just a second. Here we go. It will give these little U's behind it. Now, does anyone know what these little U's mean? They mean that that particular transaction, even though it was originally $50, there was an update to that particular line item, either through the fee slip or through receipts. So those are the two different ones that can actually appear on this report. And you can identify and follow through exactly for each patient's transaction what could have occurred. Okay?
You know, Sue, it's funny. I love that you just showed that. This is Rebecca. Melissa and I, and you, of course, we were going through this yesterday, and it was so funny because both Melissa and I said, we didn't even know that was there. And it's funny how sometimes, you know, you just get so used to seeing these reports or looking at what you normally look at that you don't even realize that things like that exist. And I just see where that could be so very helpful. So I think that's a great tip.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You learn things new every day, right? And even us, we're still learning things, and it's pretty exciting to see that. So, exactly.
Thank you, Rebecca and Melissa. All right, let's move on to our daily sheet by provider on fee slip. This particular report shows kind of like the same thing as the day sheet by line item based on a provider on the fee slip. Okay, we're going to use yesterday's date again. You can sort by provider, and you can specify by provider as well if you only want one provider on the report. Again, I do apologize for those popping up on my other screen. So what this is going to tell us is the patient's name or insurance company, if you had an insurance check that come in and he's getting ready to post it. If it's a patient transaction, there's fee slip number, what was billed to the insurance, what was billed to the patient, and if that patient made their payment. So your doctors at the end of the day, or the office manager may want to know if we collected on everything of all the services that we rendered. And it is broken down by provider. So you'll see the total here for Benjamin Casey, as well as the total here for Mark Miller. And that's what this little check mark does, is it groups it that way. Okay, what do we have next here? Deposit ticket report.
Really quick, can I chime in on that? This is Melissa again. I also liked this slip, the slip in our office because we can reference the fee slip number. I can easily pull up on my OfficeMate a patient account by fee slip number. I can see what that fee slip is by directly going to that fee slip instead of kind of searching for the patient, getting to the fee slip, all of that. So this was another great, it's just a quick reference, gives you a fee slip number. You can reference it that way without having to, you know, do a bunch of extra opening of windows and things like that. So there's another great little tip that we use in our office for this day sheet. That fee slip number is great on this report.
Yeah, let's show that how you can do that. If I have, let's see, open our fee slip, Sherry's was 180. So you basically open your fee slip window, you key in the fee slip number based on the report, and say get flip. If you need to review anything here, then this is where how you can get to that very easily in what Melissa is talking about. Very good, Melissa, thank you. All right, let's get back to our report
reference
here.
You know, to make us a little bit more efficient. I mean, a little bit helps.
Right. Okay. Deposit ticket. And what's my deposit ticket actually going to show me? It's going to show me, there is no parameters really for it other than your date, and it's not going to have a range there. Your deposit ticket is basically on an individual date. Even though the OfficeMate shows that it's a range, it's always going to be single dates that you can run a deposit ticket report for. So it's going to show me how many checks I brought in, who the patients were, and what those check numbers were, or how they made their payments, how much cash I brought in. And up here in the upper right corner, you'll see these little arrows. And of course, the longer your transactions, you may have a huge office or multiple stores that you're doing deposits for. And you can maneuver around those pages by using these arrows. So here's my second page, and it tells me the rest of my income revenue that I received yesterday or today's date under those credit cards as well. So you'll see the patient's name, the receipt number that when they were entered into the system, and what method of payment they used, and then what amount. So you want to run this report at the end of every day if you're trying to balance a cash reconciliation drawer or just balance the day out individually. Someone had a question?
Sorry, it's Melissa again, chiming in. That is exactly what I was going to say. It helps us accountability for where we put our credit card slips. We can actually see if one had not been posted for the day. This is a great balance sheet for that reason, as Sue had mentioned, because, you know, your day gets busy. Things happen. You put a slip in the drawer and you may have forgotten, oh, I needed to post that. It's another way for us to just double check that everything was posted to the appropriate account. So a great report for that, too. Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, I do have a question. This is Rebecca. I did get a question about this. They're wondering if there's a way that they could email this directly to their doctor so they would know what they deposited at the end of the day.
They could save the report out to an Excel spreadsheet and email the spreadsheet as an attachment.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you for answering it.
Sure, no problem. Okay, now there's one report that goes hand in hand with this, and it used to display the information on this deposit ticket report, but we have since broken it out due to specific requests by some of our doctors and some of our clients. So now we have a returns and refunds report. And like I said, it used to show at the bottom of the deposit ticket, but now it's a separate report all by itself. So let's go to that. We're going to jump down a little bit. The returns and refunds report, you want to be able to make it the same date as your deposit ticket report when you run that. It can be split by provider if needed, do a specific provider, or run it off of a product type. I'm going to leave everything here as the default. And this report here goes kind of hand in hand, like I said, with the deposit ticket report. And as you can see, Ms. Johns actually returned those frames because she's going to actually probably pick a different color and maybe go a little on the wild side and do hot pink. But she has returned the frames that she actually ordered and has left that credit on her account for a future purchase. So you can see from this report, right along with the deposit ticket report, what actually happened for that given day. This is going to help with any refunds, too, if you run a cash drawer. It can be exported up here in the upper left by the envelope and an arrow to an Excel spreadsheet and attached in an email to forward to the doctor as well. Okay. So let's go back up to our list, and we're going to continue down with our fee slips on hold. Why would that be so important, you might say? The fee slip on hold is something that, depending on how you run things in your office, your optical department may start a fee slip, just not check out and cash out that particular patient. They may go to an actual front desk and actually cash out. But if you want your optical department to start the fee slip, then they can do that based on the materials that that particular patient is purchasing, whether it be contact lenses or eyewear. So let's take a look at this, and then we'll show you how you can make that work in the product. On the right here, you can sort those by provider once again. You can do all providers, or you can sort these by recorded by. Meaning, did Sue Fischel record it, or did Donna Newman record it, or who actually recorded that particular fee slip initially? Let's take a look at that. And as you can see, our Scooby-Doo patient here is got a couple of fee slips on hold. And basically, it's going to tell you who the patient is, what the services or the products was for, any description, if insurance was applied, and if there was any type of modifiers that are already on that fee slip. Insurance charges, any patient charges, and patient balances if Scooby did have one.
Very good. Hey, Sue, I'm wondering, could you bring up the fee slip for just a minute and show them where they would put that on hold to make it appear on that report?
Exactly. Let's do that now.
Okay.
And I'm going to use Scooby-Doo as my patient. I do apologize for the cartoon character, but this is a test database, so we don't want anything actually to accidentally go live somewhere. So let's see if we can get him up here. So I want you to see how and where all of that information comes into play. Okay, so if I open a fee slip for Scooby-Doo, your on hold is down here in the lower left corner. Now you can select just the current patient, or you can select to view all fee slips that are currently on hold. So let's set it all, and let's click on hold. You'll have a pop-up window come up listing all of the fee slips on hold. Now in this particular case, they only have one, and that's the one for Scooby-Doo that we saw on the report. If you want to add to this fee slip, you should be able to just select it and populate it in. Now this fee slip on hold is going to remain here until you modify the fee slip and re-record it. When you modify the fee slip, re-record it, it will no longer be on hold and therefore no longer be on the report. Okay? So if your process is in the office, actually you want your optical department to start populating material, then they can start the fee slip, put the fee slip on hold. It records it and gives it a fee slip number right then, as soon as it's placed on hold. Okay? And then that patient can go to your front desk. The front desk can pull up the fee slip based on searching for that patient's name. Or, did anyone know that you could actually drag this patient over to any one of these icons and it automatically pull up that patient? Let's show you how that works.
We call him the running man. This is Melissa. Another point to that fee slip on hold that we utilize it for, we give, if a patient is wanting to walk out of the office with their prescription, we always try to offer them a quote on a pair of glasses or something in the optical that we would give them basically an idea of what cost would be in our office for a particular pair of glasses. So we utilize that fee slip on hold for that purpose. It's easy for us because our charges a lot of times just populate in there. We can see what we would have quoted them, and then we go through about once a week or daily, depending on how much we've been utilizing the fee slips on hold. But we'll go through and actually get rid of those if necessary, take them off hold, maybe even sometimes call the patient and just follow up and say, you know what, just seeing if you had a chance to think about your glasses that we talked about. And so we utilize this quite a bit to really give a patient a quote on a pair of glasses and then follow up with them to see if it's something they actually want to utilize or purchase, I should say. So it's a great another way we use it in our office.
That's a good idea, Melissa. One of the things that I would ask Sue is if they're not putting anyone on hold, do you see any reason for them to have that report run daily, or should they still run it? Because I guess my question, I'll answer my own question. We've found a lot of times people will call and maybe they're not using a system where they put a patient on hold, but what happens is they'll go down, they'll think they're going to delete a line or put line additional data, or they're just clicking around and they accidentally touch the on hold button. And now you've got somebody on hold. And so I think your point about running it every day, if there's nothing for it to, if there's nobody on hold, it just won't print. And so you don't have to worry about it. But it kind of is that spell check to make sure that you haven't accidentally put somebody on hold, even if you're not using the system to purposely put people on hold. Does that make sense?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. Your on hold button is over here on the right side, right under record. So those two are fairly close together, and things do happen. And so running that report on a daily basis, just make sure that you keep your system clean in case it does get put on hold. If you accidentally put them on hold, you just bring the patient back up and you take them back off hold using the button in the lower left corner here where my cursor is. But if you accidentally put them on hold and you didn't know how to do that, and another fee slip was generated from scratch, then you would want to take those off hold and either void them, delete them, whatever the case may be, because that's just extra data in your system that isn't relevant. Okay, so running that report on a daily basis is very, we do recommend you do it just simply because you stay on top of things, and there may be some training opportunities in the office where your front desk girl may not know how to take a fee slip off hold, and so she didn't want to be having the patient wait for her to finish her part of the process. Then she just went and created a new fee slip and moved forward with the patient to give them the best services possible. So things happen, and a lot of times offices will move forward and go to the next step and just manually enter something in. So you just kind of want to keep that clutter cleaned up in the background if that is the case. Okay, very good. Now when you use the running man and you drag a patient over to a specific area of one of these first couple of tabs here in the icon bar, it will automatically open that particular feature and already populate that patient's name in here so you don't have to click the find button. So the advantages of using that running man and dragging that information over and using this quick list here is for more efficiency and time, saving you a little bit of time. So we wanted to throw that in there as well. Let's get back to our reports a little bit. Our next report is for lab orders outstanding. Lab orders outstanding is a report of all of the lab orders that are outstanding and have not been marked as dispensed. You can run a report here to help clean up some of the dispensary, because when you actually go into an RX order, you do have an RX status area up here that will help you track as well, which will be covered in a future probably webinar, or even if you're watching the tutorials, you know how that works. What this lab order report does is help your managers stay on top of where those orders are and if they're processing through that process correctly, okay? And so when I run a lab orders report, you're going to enter in your promise dates for those orders, of those future orders that are coming in, so you know what to expect, okay? Let's say if I want to change my date here, and I come in here and I first click on my first date of that date range, and I put in a future date that's what am I doing here? Future date that is actually ahead of what's going of the current day's date. You will get an error message in OfficeMate. So if I go to this next date, you will get this pop-up that comes up and says you can't do that. So if you're changing a date range and you're not using the date range set up here, to click on the drop down, get your calendar, select your date, and then set those dates into the criteria, you want to double click and change your end date of that range first, and then go and populate your top. Now, if you get that message, it automatically removes that top date range. But if I keyed it in again as 04/28/2018, I'm going to come back up with that message again. So the problem actually exists because this bottom date is a date closer to the current day's date when you're looking at something in the future or even something in the past. Just kind of wanted to show that little pop-up there. So let's take a look at this report. These can be run on eyewear or on hard contacts or soft contacts. Each report is separate based on what type of lens it is. However, you can have more than one order status of where those orders are at. A lot of offices will leave this particular criteria set to all because they want to see everything that's out there. So here we have some orders that we placed on a promise date on for the 26th of April. It gives you what lab, so if you have more than one lab, you can sort it by lab and it'll list those in alphabetical order then. And they'll group those orders based on that lab. So if you're needing to make a phone call, if you're needing to, well, this was supposed to be in here by now because my promise date now is getting really, really close, I need to contact the lab and find out what's going on. You can have that phone number information populate there. And what that comes from is that vendor maintenance over on the administration side. We'll give you a look at that here in just a second. But you can go right down these orders and say, here's my order, lab order number that I sent them through. This is what patient it's for. In case you need to verify with the lab if those are done, when they will be back. In case you need to modify that promise date a little bit for that patient. Okay, so let's take a look at where that lab information is set up. It's really important to have your labs put in the administration side of OfficeMate because that helps you along with your RX orders. Under your setup here, you're going to go to vendor maintenance. Now your vendor maintenance area here covers all of your vendors that are in your system, meaning your frame vendors, as well as your labs you set up in here. So we used our Aspen Optical, and the reason it didn't have a phone number on the report is because phone number information wasn't put in here under this particular area in the vendor maintenance setup for that lab. But if I would have put a phone number in here, do this. And we're going to save that by clicking OK. And we know this is a lab simply because it's marked lab here. And it's a VSP approved lab as well.
Can I chime in really quick? This is Melissa.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
Melissa again. This has helped us too in our office specifically because in the years past we have switched some labs. And so if we need to go back and look at an order for a particular patient, say they even had a warranty that we needed to utilize, we can see which lab we ordered the original order from because that has to happen where the warranty comes from. We have to use the original lab. So when we've changed labs, we've been able to see that, oh, we used VSP Olympia, we need to use VSP Olympia again. So it helps us with that. Setting up that lab information has really saved us in knowing which lab we need to talk to for that specific order. So it's a very great idea to set those up and have those populate. It's also great, or has to be done when you utilize the VSP interface. So
that's correct.
Using that, you have to select the lab to know where it needs to go. So great way. It's a great idea, great thing to do to set up those labs.
Very good. Thank you, Melissa.
Helpful.
Okay, so we've reran the report here, and we now see the phone number here, so it's always visible there. So having that vendor maintenance information completed is beneficial to some of your reporting.
Sue, I have a question. The question is, what is the difference? If you could go back to, can we put that report again?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
There we go. Oh, that's okay. I didn't catch you in time. The question is, what is the difference between age and day on there? Like on Rick Castle, it says age is 54, day is 330.
Day 330 means that order is 330 days old.
Oh my gosh, I bet he's mad.
No, wait a minute. That's not right. I'm sorry, that's wrong. It's an intro to a daytime phone number. It's an intro to a daytime phone number. So in his demographics, in this patient's demographics, he only has the area code set up for his demographic in his demographics.
Oh,
got it. So
that's what that means.
Not okay. That makes
that was a joke. I was trying to get everybody enlightened. See.
All right. Thank you for the question.
Yes. The day phone means that's the daytime phone number that's in that patient's demographics. And something else that's actually beneficial, I'm glad Rebecca brought that up, is if your patient, let's go to Rick. And we're going to go to his demographics real quick here. Give me 2 seconds. So see, my daytime phone number only has an area code on it. Most people or most offices, if the patient has a home phone number, they say, what's your home phone number? What's your cell phone number? But when OfficeMate actually does any type of reporting, and even in your RX status area, and you pull up statuses, it uses that daytime phone number in all of the areas of most of the areas of OfficeMate. I can't say all because I don't know that answer for sure. But in most areas of OfficeMate, it uses that daytime phone number. So if you have a home phone number, and always ask the patient if the daytime phone number is the same, because then you can populate that information right there in the demographics. And that information then is pulled on any form of one-click document, if you guys know what that is. One-click documents are specific documents that are pulled from that patient's demographics when that patient arrives in the office for their visit. It puts it on reports. It stores it in your RX order status as well for quick referencing if you need to contact that patient. So it's throughout the program where those phone numbers can come into play. Very good point.
Sue, I did have another question, and I know you demonstrated this last week on how to do this, but I think it would be great to go ahead and demonstrate it again in case somebody missed last week. The question is that they looked out in their OfficeMate and they're not finding the lab orders outstanding in their daily reports. Could you show them how they would add that to their daily reports?
Absolutely, absolutely, very good. Okay, so if you have a report that you want to add to this particular tab that isn't listed here already, you can click your Add button here in the lower left corner. And when you click your Add button in the lower left corner, you get this little pop-up. Now, this is the whole reports listing of OfficeMate. There's 35, I think, reports OfficeMate provides you. And if you're an office manager and you want to come out and see what all these reports are, you simply just click on your plus signs next to that particular category. Okay, so in this order, we're going to do the lab orders. And then it expands and shows you the types of reports under that category topic. Okay, if I click on this first lab order down here in this window, just like in that lab order, just like in the reports area, it gives a description of what that report is going to give you, what type of information that report is going to give you. So as I scroll down through these, you can read and see what that report's going to give you. Say, for example, my lab order isn't giving me much, but I want a little bit more information on my report. Then you can search the rest of these under that lab order section and determine which one is best for your office to put on that daily tab that you want to run on a daily basis. Okay, so very easy. If I have outstanding lab orders here, but I also want to run it on a weekly basis, just to see the whole week, to see if on those daily reports I actually have been populated, you can add that lab orders outstanding here as well. So the way the restriction works is if you're adding a report and it already exists here, it's not going to display in the availability. But if it is not already listed here, then you will be able to select that and add it. Okay, so that's how that works. Very good question. I don't want my frame aging on here, so I'm going to remove it. And when you remove it, it does do a verification. Here's the report you selected, is that's the one you want us to remove. If you say yes, it removed it. Okay? All right.
Okay, we do have another question here. I'm sorry, while we've got a little break there. It says, the question is unrelated to the report you're talking about, but on the fee slip, is there a new box for verifying patient identification with the check boxes, and is this a required field? So I think you need to pull up the fee slip again.
Okay. Oh, we're talking about
verifying. Yeah, they're asking if that particular box is actually a required field.
If it's in red, you would need to verify the license and photo ID and check the box in order to record the fee slip. Okay. This particular verified patient identification is run off of that patient's demographics. There's another little trick I want to show you. If I'm in the fee slip and I want to go to the patient's demographics, I don't have to drag Sally over here and go to the demographics. All I need to do is right-click on that title bar and go to patient. But in your financial info area, in this identity, possible identity theft red flag area, is where you mark and can check, I think you can check this box right here, and it will, for that one patient, display this information and do these requirements for that one patient. Now, a lot of times that's used for identity theft. If the patient has told you, I've had some problems, you may want to double check just information whenever anyone comes into your office and says, oh, I'm Sally Carter, and ask for verification through licensing, any type of credit cards. It's on the credit card receipt screen as well for Sally. So that is by patient that's turned on and off.
Okay, thank you.
All right. These are really great questions. I'm going to have to brush up on the rest of my OfficeMate besides reports so I can answer them for you.
Well,
they are great
we
questions.
all learn OfficeMate is so robust. There's just so much in it.
Okay, let's move on to open charges. Open charges is just one of my favorites. I think it's a really good feature in OfficeMate, but you have to understand and respect it, kind of like that big giant that's going to have your back when a bully comes knocking at your door. But at the same time, you need to respect it because it is a very powerful tool. So your open charges report, we think, is a good report to do on a daily basis because it actually lists charges that didn't make it to a fee slip. And that's material charges as well as any services that the doctor had done. So when he does his exam in an exam writer or Affinity EHR, it generates charges based on the CPT codes and the diagnosis codes, the procedure codes, and the diagnosis codes that that doctor added to that exam. Sometimes they're not finished by the time the patient's ready to leave, and those charges come over later and then remain out there as an open charges. So that's why you want to run this report and try to keep it as clean as possible. You can run a utility, and our awesome customer care team can help you with that utility. If you have a whole bunch of them, you just don't have time to get to them because maybe you've never ran the report before and you want to start it on a clean slate. But be careful, because if you run the report and I'm going to use yesterday's date. Actually, I'm going to go out a 2-year range because my database only has about 45 people in it, and so I want to make sure I have criteria on my report. You're probably going to run yours either on a daily basis or weekly basis. Weekly is recommended, what the normal recommendation is, but I do have some offices that want to run this report on a daily basis. Let's take a look at it. It's going to give you, as you can see here at the top here, which is our trusty little Scooby-Doo dog again, it's going to give you individual line items for those services that were still marked open. Now, what happens with Scooby-Doo here is the fact that he was in a hurry, and they just opened a fee slip as staff did and populate 92014, 92015 to that fee slip and recorded it. Then when the doctor finished his notes in the exam and actually closed the exam, then those charges got sent back over again. So when you run this report, you kind of have to be Dick Tracy detective, because you want to make sure that anything that's outstanding out there, first question would be, when I open the patient's ledger, is there a fee slip already? If there's a fee slip already, you simply just close the charges. And how do you do that? Let me show you. I'm going to pull up Mr. Do here again. You can go into the patient's demographics. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can go into the patient demographics, and there's an open charges button right here. And the only time this open charges button is going to display is when there's actually open charges for that patient. Okay.
So, Sue, I love that you're showing it from the patient demographic, because that's how I trained all of my receptionists to whenever they open the patient demographic, they always had to do a look and see if there were open charges, and if so, on the day the patient came in, if, before they were actually seen by the doctor, if there's open charges, then we need to investigate it. And so that's a great thing to ask your front desk person to do when they're actually verifying the patient information. If they see that that open charges button is there, to click it and find out what's left over.
Yeah, very good. So at this point, you've already made that determination that these particular charges are have already been manually added to a fee slip and recorded already, and there was no harm done as far as the patient kind of sneaking out that door. Then you just come in and you can leave everything selected. You can use your unselect all. You can select the individual ones that you want to close right now and then say close charges. I'm not going to do this here because I do use this database for other trainings, and so I want Mr. Do to stay out there on my report for my future trainings, but that's how you would do that. If you close these charges and close all of them here, this button is going to go away. It's going to be no longer displayed there. Okay. Now another way that I think Melissa actually does, Melissa, if you want to pop in here and just explain that way, I can drive for you.
Yes. Let me see. I'm drawing a blank at the moment, and I know. Keep going. I'm going to think about it. I will come back to it. I know I'm just drawing a blank at the moment, but.
Okay. While Melissa's thinking about it, Sue, this is Rebecca. I'd like to toss in something, and I know we only have 9 more minutes of our hour, but I wanted to toss this in because I think it's important. Whenever a doctor asks me to come and do consulting with them, one of the first reports I run every single time is, of course, the aging report would be my first one. The second one is open charges. And some doctors have 300-400 pages of open charges, and they just panic. They're like, oh my gosh, don't tell me this is everything that's never been billed, you know, and like, no, it's not everything that's never been billed. But a lot of times what happens is if the doctor is an exam writer and adds doesn't close the exam and add the charges, then the patient's at the desk, they get the checkout goes ahead and puts the charges in manually, and then after the patient leaves, the charges from the doctor come over, and they have been entered, but because we do these open charges to make sure that you don't lose any money, those charges come over. And so that's why I suggest once you get it all cleaned up, is really checking this every day as a part of your daily checkout. Just, hey, is there any open charges left? Check them, close them out, keep it clean. And if you open it up and you've got, you know, 300-400 open charges, like Sue said, there is a utility that you can call customer support and ask them to, you know, to delete those out so that you can start over clean. Or you can make the decision to go through each one and make sure that the patient actually got charged for them.
Yes, absolutely.
Great point. Yes, and actually the way we utilize this is exactly the same way Rebecca said. We pull this up every day. We look at it. Another great way to access to see if there are open charges that need to be posted, we actually access the ledger first. So we'll a lot of times open the ledger, take a look at the history. If we see that those charges were posted that day already, then we can actually go into the fee slip right from the ledger, delete or close out of those charges if necessary. So we actually, from our office standpoint, we pull it up directly to the ledger, take a look at the ledger, see if those charges were posted, and then close out if necessary. You can actually access a new fee slip if you need to right from there. If the charges weren't posted, you can, you know, create a new fee slip, charge those, or post those charges, excuse me, and then you're set to go. So this is a great report that we run every day just to double check that everything was checked, because sometimes, hopefully not, but sometimes it can be after a week if you run that report. It just becomes a little bit cumbersome and trying to remember what needed to be done for those patients. So we do run this every day. Great report for that. So
awesome.
That was my little tip. That's how we utilize it. So great.
So that little pop-up is controlled. That little pop-up real quick is controlled through your administration side under your setup preferences. And on your finance tab right in this area. So even though you may not activate open charges button or have that pop-up come up in the administration side, you can still run that report and stay on top of it. Okay. I know we're getting close on our time, Rebecca. Is there something you want to say, or?
No, I think it maybe you just might want to very quickly show I think there's 3 more reports that we do run on, we recommend running, or 4, and maybe you could just quickly go over and say why we would recommend that they run these.
A patient refund of unapplied amounts. This particular report will give you the same type of a report as your returns and refunds, only it focuses on patients that have unapplied amounts that you may want to do a refund for. It focuses on those unapplied amounts. And this particular report shows you specifics about the patient, the transaction date of when that refund was done, what type of refund was done, and where, if it was a credit card, and the amount that was refunded. It also lists who in your staff recorded the refund and completed that process. Okay. Our receipts journal is very similar to the actual deposit ticket report, but it gives it in a list that the doctor may like a little bit better. Instead of just knowing what those categories were, it gives it in a full list and doesn't sort them per payment type. So if he wants to quickly go through here and see all of his patients listed and what transactions was entered into the system and how they were reconciled, he can do that and get a total at the bottom of how much revenue was received for that given day.
So basically, my understanding would be you would either decide the receipts journal or the deposit ticket, one of the two in most cases?
Or both. Some offices do both if the doctor likes it in this way, but you still just want that other breakdown that the deposit ticket gives you for reconciling your drawer and closing your day out. So some offices will do both. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And we already discussed the refunds, the returns and refunds report when we talked about the deposit ticket, and that's where all your returns and your refunds are actually going to be displayed there by patient as well. Now your unapplied amounts is a custom report. Any custom report or any report that you put on these first 5 tabs here that is a custom report will have this type of criteria on the right when that's selected. And what that does is when you preview it, it opens this screen. Now this is not a big scary monster. It's just going to allow you to make additional selections based on how much information you want on your report. You have more control through a custom report on what criteria comes back for that report than you do on any of the given reports that's hard-coded into the OfficeMate system. And as we go through the rest of these webinars, we're going to touch base on this custom report area from time to time, explaining how that particular report, why it's a custom report, and what options to select in here for that particular report type that you're looking for. Our unapplied amounts here is based on, I want to see the unapplied amount specifically for individual things. I can do it by patient balance, or I can do it by insurance balance. But I cannot only get a list of just my unapplied amounts clear across the board. The system forces you to select one of these check boxes. You always want it on the most end date because you want to make sure that your information is to the current day's date. Okay? When I run that report, then it actually gives me a list of, it's kind of looking like your aging report with your 30, 60, 90, 120 plus criteria, as well as all of those unapplied amounts. But that's what's going to be the focus of this report. It's not going to give you what outstanding charges you still have to collect. It's only going to give you what your unapplied amounts are. Now, on your insurance side, these DEP, what does that mean? It means that's a deposit. This first number here is your receipts number. And this next date is when that particular amount was entered into the system. These DEP pounds that show up under your insurances when running this report, that means that that money's been put into the OfficeMate system, but those EOBs have not been reconciled. So it's very important to make sure that you don't have any of those on your report. If you have some old ones like this and the doctor decides, I'm not going to have you go back and reconcile all those old ones, then you can use in your custom area this particular exclude before date. And if I would set this to, for example, 2017, then my list on my report is a lot shorter.
Very good. So thank you so much for showing us this. And Melissa, for you chiming in, I just can't tell you how valuable it is to have both of you on these webinars and to actually be able to have the office manager here and then our OfficeMate subject matter expert here and be able to describe all of this. And as I said earlier, I'm actually learning as we're going. So thank you again. I want to remind everyone, if you want to hang out with Sue and Melissa at our OfficeMate Education Conference, we have one June the 8th through the 9th in San Antonio. We're also doing EHR training there, identity practice management, and exam writer training. So come on out to San Antonio, join us. The next one will be in October, in 26th, 27th in Phoenix. This is where you sit for 2 full days, hands-on, concentrating nothing on anything, nothing but your system itself. And also, I want to ask you guys to do a favor for me. If you like these classes, please promote them just by going out and making a comment on Facebook user group. Reason being is the more participation we get, the more chatter we get about this, the greater opportunity that we will have to be able to do things like this for you guys in the future. So go out there, tell people about it, tell them that you came, tell them what you thought of it. If you didn't like it, get a hold of me personally, and I will do whatever I need to do to help you out. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.